okay? I'm a punster. I have a pun gene that I inherited from my dad. Let's see here. This is small, but it'll work. All right, I'm gonna put a little water on it so you can see more contrast. This is a rock you can take for granted.
Because it's granite.
Because it's granite.
Welcome to In the Parks, an Indiana State Parks podcast. I'm Allison Martin, and I'm excited to tell the stories of these amazing places in the Hoosier State. I think our parks show off the best of Indiana, but there's so much more to them than you might expect. So it's time to go in-depth to really know the stories and discover what makes each destination unique and valuable as part of Indiana. On In the Parks, you'll learn about the people, legends, and places that formed Indiana's parks in the past and who is writing the story now. Today, we're going to Falls of the Ohio State Park. I went down to Falls of the Ohio State Park in early September. All I knew was it's the smallest state park, and I'd seen some really amazing pictures of the fossil beds. I was excited to learn about it, but not really sure what to expect. When I got there, the place was a hub of energy. Just listen to a couple activities going on.
I'm going to use my shadow as a pointer again. This right here is the exoskeleton of a horn coral. Horn corals are kind of related to something that's still around today. Anyone here familiar with the movie Finding Nemo? What's that thing that clownfish sleep in? Anemone. Did someone say an anemone? So you would be correct. Your horn corals are your proto-sea anemones. Basically, this was a time when cnidarians, the group that kind of included...
Got a pretty good number this morning.
So what are they doing out there today? Just picking up trash?
Yeah, today's a river sweep. We partner with the local sewer district. There's actually a large number of partners on it, and we've just got them. We told them we're pretty good here, although that piece of plywood needs to come. We'll see if we can get someone to get
we
it
can see
today.
if Toby could bring the...
In addition to the naturalist-led tour and the 20 or 30 volunteers there for river cleanup, I also spotted a yoga class looking down on the Ohio River, people going in and out of the interpretive center, and kayakers out on the water. Plus, up on the levee, bikers and runners were taking advantage of the 7.5-mile Ohio River Greenway, which connects New Albany, Clarksville, and Jeffersonville. It was a beautiful September day, and everyone wanted to be out enjoying the park and surrounding communities. I was also surprised there was no gate entrance, just a parking lot with a $2 parking fee, which your annual pass covers. The park was full of snapshots of life, and as I learned about it, it totally makes sense that this was my experience at Falls of the Ohio, because this park along the Ohio River, just across from Louisville, Kentucky, has been a bedrock of activity in the area essentially since time began. Bedrock? Get it? You heard Alan Goldstein at the start of the episode? He's the interpretive naturalist at the park, and he gave me permission to use as many rock puns as possible. And look, I might get a lot of shale for it, but I'm going to have fun in the process. But back to the Falls of the Ohio. That's a bold statement. A foundational place since time began? It's actually true, though. From ancient fossils to the park today, this land has seen it all. You also heard the voice of Kenton Wooden from the Falls of the Ohio Foundation. He gave me a succinct overview of everything this land has seen.
They tell the stories of our 400-million-year-old Devonian fossil beds, which are the only natural barrier along the 981-mile-long Ohio River. And because of that natural barrier created by the fossil beds, we have all these amazing stories. And it's mammoth and bison that used to use the fossil beds to cross in their migration. Of course, General George Rogers Clark, his land in Clarksville was the 1,000 acres deeded to him after his efforts in the war, which was the first American settlement in the Northwest Territory. We've also got over 10 to 12,000 years of native people living there, people crossing the river on the Underground Railroad when the water was shallow and seeking freedom. So it's just a really, really unique place with these incredible stories.
Today we're going to hear a few of the stories from this place, and we're going to pretend we're watching a time lapse. I always loved watching those in science class. So let's zoom backwards in time to first learn about the fossils. I met our main guide today at the perfect time. Here's an official introduction to Alan.
Alan Goldstein. I'm the interpretive naturalist here, and I've been here 30 years. 31 years in November, and I'm retiring next year.
Well, happy anniversary and happy almost retirement.
Yeah.
Alan has degrees in geology and education. Before coming to Falls of the Ohio, he worked at the Museum of History and Science, which is now called Kentucky Science Center. Alan started in 1993, so he was part of Falls of the Ohio from the very beginning. The truth is, after he retires, there's no one who can actually replace Alan. He is the fossil and geology expert, and his love for his job is clear.
Now, what makes these fossil beds unique is really two attributes. One is that it's an urban setting. We're literally surrounded by 1 million people. You know, you can't say that at the Petrified Forest or almost anywhere else. Secondly, is that when you're down on the coral beds, which are exposed today, but they're only exposed about 4 months of the year, you're actually walking on one surface. You know, I call it dry snorkeling, because you could actually see different fossils in their growth positions, or if they're turned around, you know, from hurricanes and tropical storms, they probably weren't transported very far. You know, so that's what I consider to be one of the more unique attributes of this, because you could actually see, oh, this coral here and this coral here were living at the same time. They were actually neighbors. You know, most of the time when you think about fossil exposures, you think of like the Grand Canyon, where you have layers over time, you know, and so the oldest is the bottom, the youngest at the top, and you're only looking at cross sections of layers. Here you're actually on the layer itself.
Pretty quickly, I had to admit to Alan I really did not know anything about fossils. And to be clear, we're not talking about dinosaur bones. Arguably, these fossils are better because there are so many of them. Let me help you with the context and set the scene. In our time lapse, we're going back before the Ohio River was like it is today, before we Americans got our hands on it. The river dropped 26 feet over 2.5 miles, which made it a treacherous place for canoes or boats in high water. It's the only natural obstruction on the Ohio River. During low water seasons, people would have to carry their boats on land past the falls. The limestone would be visible then and was probably about 2,000 acres of fossil beds. When I visited, the water was the lowest it had been in years, and it was the most amazing landscape. I felt like I was on the moon. Because of locks and dams on the river, which make it more navigable, the fossil beds now cover about 220 acres, but they still make an impact. There are small craters full of water dotting the beds as they extend towards the river. To the north, there are still trees on either side of the river, but you can also look south and see the Clark Memorial Bridge and Big Four Bridge, with the city of Louisville sprawling across the river. It's an incredibly unique and beautiful landscape, truly a photographer's dream. Because of the dams, there are now little inlets from the river, called sloughs.
We have a few little channels here. That's called the little slough. Okay, so the water is literally coming out from underneath the dam. It's always like that. There's no risk of the dam collapsing because of that. This is Big Slough here, and if you look toward the back, there's a waterfall there. It's about 5 feet high. That's the only natural waterfall left here. All the other natural waterfalls were covered when they built the dam.
I asked Alan to explain if people had always known the fossils were important.
There was a book recently published by the local archaeology society on archaeology of the Falls region. One of the chapters was about the use of fossils in ceremonial purposes by Native Americans. They found evidence that the Falls of the Ohio area was considered to be hallowed grounds, and they actually found fossils in burials all over the region.
Since they found fossils in Native American burial areas, they likely saw them as having religious significance. We can't know for sure what they thought, but there's enough evidence for us to see these beds were important even before people understood what they were seeing. Alan also showed me a horn coral that was described with enough detail in an article written in 1820 that we know we're looking at the same kind today. This indicates that for Europeans, there's been an understanding for over 200 years that these were important fossils.
Yeah, well, let's walk down here.
As we walked down to the fossil beds, Alan also pointed out some markers spray painted on the steps. It was like an actual time lapse. These markers indicated the water level of the Ohio River during floods in 1997 and 2018. Pointing up above us, Alan directed my attention to a brick on the Interpretive Center building with the year 1937 carved into it, the year where 90% of Clarksville was underwater. We'll learn more about that flood in the Charlestown State Park episode in 2 weeks.
So now we're on the riverbank. Sand and gravel, basically, just like your average riverbanks. And then this is our upper fossil beds. We've actually, the last several years, we've started using a pressure washer to clean the pollutants off.
And that doesn't disturb the fossils? Okay.
No, it makes them visible for the most part. In fact, we found a lot more fossils that we didn't even know existed because of pressure washing.
Alan brought a spray bottle full of water out with us so we could make the fossils really pop. Not that he needed to.
So when you get water on them,
I guess I thought it would be like, hey, there's one every 20 feet or something.
Yeah, the fossils here on the fossil beds are dense. The upper fossil beds contain greater biodiversity, so there's more different types of fossils up here. What you're photographing is crinoids and some brachiopods. And here's a branching coral over here. Here's a piece of a crinoid arm right there. Crinoid basal cup right there. Big old stem right there. Brachiopod, brachiopod, brachiopod. They're common throughout the fossil beds, but they're only abundant up here. I mean, where they're really obvious.
And what are they? Like,
imagine a starfish that grew on a stalk, and instead of having starfishy arms, they're more like feathers. And the tube feet, instead of using it for crawling, the tube feet are used to take food out of the arms and gather them down to the mouth. We're looking at the part that elevated the animal off the ocean floor. So for example, here is a piece of a crinoid. It looks like a broken bracelet. It's just a longer section of stem that's curved.
And they're using that to grab food to feed themselves?
Well, that's actually to elevate them off the ocean floor.
Okay, so that's pushing them up.
That keeps them up, so, the crinoids might live 1, 2, 3 feet off the ocean floor, depending on the species. This thing right here is a colonial coral. We call them pipe organ corals. And this is a big one. This is about 3 feet across. These are actually more common on the lower fossil beds than they are up here. This just happens to be one that's actually in growth position. So it's, it's just large. It's got these tubes radiating out and so forth. I mean, these are animals that extracted calcium from the ocean, just like corals do today. And as a result, they're essentially living rock when you think about it. So when they died, the soft tissue and the polyps would dissipate, but the skeletal structure itself would stay behind.
Alan explained the limestone where the fossils are found is formed in shallow tropical oceans where there would be plenty of storms. That explains why the fossils in the upper fossil beds are often broken, eroded, or partially buried.
Well, another example is trilobites, but I'll show you. Here's one that's exposed just back in April. So this is a brand new trilobite exposure.
I've heard of those, but I don't feel like I really know what.
Trilobites would be the Devonian equivalent of a horseshoe crab or a shrimp. No pinchers or anything like that, but they're arthropods and they crawled on the ocean floor and they basically ate. They were scavengers. Come over here. I'll show you. We have a snail that was found by a 4th grader last year. Fossils, like I say, fossils come and go as the rock erodes away.
If you're having a hard time imagining what the fossils look like, I'll have some pictures on the In the Parks Online Instagram, or check out Alan's fossil guide, which is linked in the show notes. We climbed down a little further, but we were still on the upper coral beds.
So if you look right here, you see all the fossils here?
Yeah.
See how dense they are?
It's crazy.
So here's a large honeycomb coral. This one's about 2 feet across. This is a large but not exceptionally large coral. You see the lines come down over here where they form a honeycomb pattern. Here your side view. That tells me that this coral was flipped upside down by a storm. So we're actually looking at the underside of the coral, not the top.
Interesting.
Now if we look around like just around it, here's a horn coral, real long and skinny one, looks like a snake. All right, here and right here, this thing looks like a wagon wheel.
Yeah.
That's the top of a horn coral. So different orientations give you different views of the same type of fossil.
If you haven't figured it out yet, when you go to Falls of the Ohio, you must have a naturalist guide you. It helps you spot and understand fossils and learn their significance. Here's another example.
So what you're standing on right there, that is actually a sponge.
Okay.
And there you can tell the sponges from the corals out here because it looks like petrified cow patties.
They do look like that. So the petrified cow patties are the sponges?
They're the sponges, yes.
We walked down the fossil beds even more, and suddenly, Alan said we were in a different zone.
Now we're in the lower coral zone. So we went from the upper coral zone to the lower coral zone. We went from the middle Devonian to the early Devonian. There's no time difference. They actually grade into each other, but their fossils are, some of the corals are different. So the lower coral zone has coral species that you don't find up there, even though they're only an inch apart.
So this goes back to what you were talking about before, where you don't see like a Grand Canyon with layers
right.
from old to young. You're seeing it all in one.
Yeah. So for example,
how are you able to tell? Is it just like you said, the internal structure is different from the different ages?
Yes.
This goes back to what makes the falls fossils unique. Imagine the Grand Canyon kind of like a cake before it's cut. The bottom layers are older than the top layers, and they're stacked bottom to top. To see all the layers well, you'd have to hike down into the bottom of the canyon, which honestly is a lot of work. At Falls of the Ohio, it's like you cut a piece of that cake and put it sideways on your plate to serve it. Now you can see all the layers spread out before you more easily and all at once. It allows you a closer view of these ancient creatures, and some of the coral fossils have real beauty to them. I mean, these are pretty. They almost look like
Well, they have
something you would
character.
see embroidered
Yeah.
on like a woman's dress or like a doily you would
Mm-hmm.
see.
Yeah,
Like that kind of pattern.
branching coral. But again, look at the three-dimensional nature to it.
Then we went out so far we could see a rock called Chicken Rock. It's very rare to access or even be able to see this rock because the water levels in the river aren't usually as low as they were when I visited.
Let's go over here. We're gonna go to an area that I rarely take people to because the rivers are usually up too high. So here we are on. Look at the size of the potholes.
So
Look at the size of the potholes here. If you
they're
look,
so big.
if you look toward the bridge, what you're going to notice is that this is part of, right over here is the main channel, right? So this area would have had a lot of strong water flow, which is why we have so many potholes. Remember, these potholes are way, way older than the dam and the bridge.
I mean, these are just so cool.
So here's
This gives you that perspective too, because from
Yeah.
up top it seemed like
it's so tiny for one thing.
Yeah, and then you're
yet
down,
that
you're like,
rock
wow.
is about 8 feet across.
Huh.
And it's sculpted by the river. And the reason, what the story that I heard a while is called Chicken Rock, was when the river is where only those knobs are sticking out. Whoever named it said it reminded them of chickens roosting on a rail fence.
After that, Alan and I walked to where the interpretive center is. He pointed out the wheelchair-accessible ramp that will let people look out over the fossil beds. Unfortunately, due to water levels and safety, the beds themselves aren't wheelchair-accessible. But the interpretive center is really a museum, so thankfully there are fossils and the area's history on display there for everyone to see. Alan explained some of the things you'll find there.
When you go through the exhibit gallery, you're going to see a display case called The Best of the Best. It's on the wall. And you're going to see there's a big trilobite about yay big. It was found by a 4th grader. So anyway, if you look at The Best of the Best, most of those fossils I picked up in the last 30 years. A couple of them were in the old exhibits, but most of them aren't.
Well, that's also really kind of fun and exciting that it's not like it's tapped out. Like
Right.
people are still finding, and you're finding things
Yeah.
that are out there. That's
Yeah.
really cool. If you really dig rocks and fossils, or have a kid in your life who does, there might be some tears when you discover you aren't allowed to take any of the rocks or fossils home with you. But the park has found a way to help out.
One of the things that we've done here was we put in collecting piles. So if you go in the back, we have some collecting piles back there. They're from local rock quarries. And it's actually a shale that produces some really cool fossils. And so we've actually been using those collecting piles for the last 30 years.
That's kind of fun, because there's little kids
Yeah.
who really want to take that rock home with them.
And on our hikes, we often say, when we talk about the fact that you can't collect rocks here, go over, if you want a rock to take back with you as a souvenir, go to the collecting piles.
I also got the inside scoop from the Falls property manager, Jake Shapley. He said Alan finds fossils at rock quarries himself, and then does something really kind.
Alan also finds good fossils when he goes and hunts, and he will sometimes hide them in the fossil pile during special events so people have a chance to experience that. I know my daughter's 6 and she found one and is ecstatic and it sits in her room on her window.
Your kid won't know the fossil was planted just for them. They'll be delighted. I guess you could say, igneous is bliss. If you really want to dig deeper, check out Paleontology Camp.
One of the things that I've been doing for a while is trying to promote careers in paleontology. And so for the last 25 or so years, I've been doing a family paleontology camp where for 3 days, kids get to become a paleontologist, and we spend 1 day in the classroom with activities, and we take them down on the fossil beds. The next 2 days in the morning, we either go to the quarry or we go to a road cuts over near Taylorsville, Kentucky. Anything they collect, they can take home with them. And so the idea with this paleontology camp is that we give the kids a taste of what the broad scope of paleontology is all about.
I'll have a link to that in the show notes too. If we stood in one place and watched time pass, as Kenton said, we'd see thousands and thousands of years of indigenous people on the land, using the water as a resource for traveling and sustenance, making settlements up and down the river. We'd see bison crossing the river when the water's low. A mammoth tusk was found in nearby Bethlehem, Indiana. In the 1600s, we'd spot the first European explorers in the area. And 200 years after that, here comes George Rogers Clark. Clark was a Revolutionary War general and hero. He was given about 8,000 acres in the area. The Clark homestead is about 1.5 miles north of the state park. On my visit, I took a run on the greenway to the homestead. There's not a lot there today because someone burned down his cabin, but there are other pieces of the Clark homestead there. It's where Clark lived from 1803 to 1809 during his retirement. However, Clark didn't come to Indiana alone. He brought with him several enslaved people. including Ben and Venus McGee, an enslaved black couple who Clark inherited from his father's estate. Since slavery was prohibited in the Indiana Territory at the time, Clark freed McGee. The next day, Clark placed him into indentured servitude for 30 years. After 30 years was up, Ben would be given $1, a mule, and a small piece of land. This loophole created a legal form of near slavery for many black Americans in the territory. The McGee family lived in an area near Clark's home called Guinea Bottoms until about 1820. It was the first free black settlement in the Northwest Territory. At the Clark homestead today, there's a cabin representing their family. Stick with me on our time lapse, because also in 1803, you'll spot George's brother, William Clark, at the homestead. He was joined by Meriwether Lewis at the Falls of the Ohio. Yeah, that's right, Lewis and Clark. The men embarked on a journey to explore the West, as directed by President Thomas Jefferson. In 1807, not only is time flying, but so are the birds. And they're being studied by noted naturalist John James Audubon. He spent over 2 years in the area making 200 sketches of birds. Even today, there are over 270 species of birds that call falls their home. Alan couldn't help but point them out all over the place.
Oh, by the way, there's an osprey right there. See a bird
Yeah,
flying
that's
here?
neat.
Falls, Ohio is a very, very famous birding locality. And it's actually one that was so well known that Audubon moved from Philadelphia to Louisville to bird. So yes, I mean, this area has always been famous for birding. And I mean, if you look straight across, you see all those white birds over there? Those are great egrets. When I started working here 30 years ago, if we saw one great egret, we were excited.
I mean, that looks like 40 or so over there already.
Yeah.
Alan shared how the city and changes in climate have altered the number of birds and bird populations over the years. But the Falls remains an ideal place to see all sorts of native birds, as well as some that blow in from storms. If you're a birder and haven't been there yet, put that on your list for this year. Time passes again. Now it's 1863. The Emancipation Proclamation ensures the freedom of black men and women throughout the country. However, in Confederate Kentucky, they're still enslaved. Can you see Hannah Toliver? She's a free black woman in Jeffersonville. She, her husband, and other free blacks have been aiding fugitive slaves, helping them find freedom on the Underground Railroad by slipping across the Ohio River near the falls. But in 1864, Hannah's finally caught, and in May, she's sentenced to 7 years in the Kentucky State Penitentiary. Then, interestingly, in January of 1865, the same judge who sentenced her now asks for her pardon, which she receives. Hannah's story fades away in the years after that. But if you want to learn more about the Underground Railroad, there's a link in the show notes with information about it and Guinea Bottoms as well. As the years flow by, you'll spot other famous people at the Falls of the Ohio, like Walt Whitman and Mark Twain. And before you know it, it's 1987, and a group of people who believe these falls and fossil beds deserve protection get together and start a foundation. Here's the executive director telling their story.
My name is Kenton Wooden. I'm the executive director of the Falls of the Ohio Foundation. In 1987, there was no Falls of the Ohio State Park. There was just these amazing fossil beds, and our community felt like it was a really precious resource that needed to be preserved and maintained, and wasn't receiving the recognition it needed, and got together and formed our foundation in 87 with the idea of stewarding the natural and historical resources of the place. We worked together to help bring the state park system in as a partner in 1990. And then from 90 until 94, we worked together with the local community and the state to build our interpretive center, which opened in 1994.
The Interpretive Center is really fantastic. It's full of hands-on activities and would appeal to many ages of kids. It's interactive, features Alan's best of the best fossils, and lets you walk through the time lapse in an immersive way. I know some people are surprised that there's a cost to experience the exhibits, but Kenton explains why.
The Falls of the Ohio is unique in a lot of ways, but it also is Indiana's smallest state park, and it's their only state park without a gate fee. When you pay to go through the exhibits, you're helping support that place. That is the way that we support that place. When you go through that interpretive center, you're going to see something that is unlike anything else in the state park system. They are top-of-the-line, world-class exhibits that were developed in partnership between the Falls of the Ohio Foundation and the state park. So when you go through, you get a really great experience that you won't have many other places.
I agree. I feel like it was an incredible museum. I wasn't sure what it was when I walked through it first, and then you can just keep turning corner after corner, and it is really impressive. I would say where the other ones are really truly interpretive centers or nature centers, this does feel like a museum, which I thought was pretty amazing.
Which was really intentional when we redid it. The Interpretive Center was redone just in 2016. So, it's not that old. It's still pretty new and it's in great shape. And it really does a pretty fantastic job of summarizing these stories and making them digestible, and not just for all the students that come through the building, but also for folks visiting and just wanting to learn a little something more.
I think the cost is worth it, but you can get in for free if you volunteer for river cleanup for a couple hours first.
Yeah, we're very fortunate to have a great group of volunteers and organizations in our community that want to help preserve and take care of that place. It's a wonderful place to do volunteer cleanup events, whether it's scout groups or corporate gatherings. Unfortunately, we deal with an awful lot of pollutants and trash that kind of litter our landscape at certain times of the year. The river's unpredictable. It goes up and down, and when it comes up and it goes back down, it often leaves an awful lot of trash and debris. We work with community groups to help host cleanup events to make that place better than what it would be otherwise. We work with them to help get the trash cleaned up, make it beautiful, so that as out-of-town visitors and others come and they want to experience it, they get to experience it for its true and natural beauty. It doesn't matter if you're one person or 10 or 20, anybody can volunteer anytime, and bags and gloves will be provided, and put some time in, and the state park says if you volunteer 2 hours, you get to go to the Interpretive Center at no cost. And so there is an added benefit to coming and helping and cleaning our environment and supporting the falls.
The foundation always spends a little extra time cleaning up in September because they host a really fun concert there called Rock the Rocks.
We take a band with full speakers, lighting, and everything, and we put them down on the fossil beds. And we invite people to bring a blanket, bring a long chair, and just sit down in the rocks, be down in the natural environment, and hear a really fabulous band play a concert for you. We get outstanding talent. We've had Grammy winners there. We've had bands that travel all over the world. It is an awesome experience. Free food, free drink, and all of the proceeds go back to support the foundation's mission within the Falls area.
In 2024, the concert featured Michael Cleveland and Flamekeeper. They're still finalizing the band for 2025, though, but it sounds like a really fun way to enjoy music and the falls.
So usually, you're going to get some really fabulous weather. Nice sunny days where it's warm, and as that sun goes down, it gets a little chilly, but the sunset happens over the shoulder of the bands. And it's just, you've got to see it to believe it. It really is a unique concert experience.
Through events like Rock the Rocks, the foundation has also raised enough money to create outdoor classrooms for learning. There's one near a 3/4-mile easy trail through the woods. Here's property manager Jake Shapley again.
Last year, we partnered on an outdoor classroom. The park and the foundation partnered. The foundation hired a contractor to do a lot of landscaping work. We were able to use our equipment to pull the driftwood up from the river. That's what the benches were made out of. The limestone that you saw in there, the big boulders, came from a local quarry, and it's the same age as the fossil beds. So Alan was able to go and pick out limestone that had fossils in them. We put those in so you can teach from those as well.
One limitation of the outdoor classrooms is there isn't much shade or anything to cover students if it starts to rain. The foundation is now focused on building a $1.8 million outdoor education pavilion. It'll be completely covered, have bathrooms, and provide another space for field trips and events.
We're hoping to break ground on that in 25. We are fully funded now thanks to a lot of individuals and foundations. And so break ground in 25 with the hopes of cutting a ribbon on it in late 25, 26. But it will be a place really intended for educational programming, but also available for special events.
If you want to get more involved with the foundation, to volunteer, or simply want to learn more about the Falls of the Ohio, their website is excellent and provides so many stories and visuals. Check out fallsoftheohio.org. You can also see a live webcam of the river on their site. In the winter or after a heavy rain, the fossil beds are totally covered and the river turns into Class 4 rapids. Kenton and Alan both talked about seeing experienced whitewater rafters out on the water. But in the summer, the water is much lower and the fossil beds are typically exposed and ready for exploring. Kenton said part of the area's appeal is how it's always changing.
I get to walk up every day and see it. And what's fascinating is you never walk up and see the same thing. You know, the river changes by the day, by the hour, by the minute sometimes. And what wildlife is there is changing. One morning I walked up and there's a herd of deer walking out on the fossil beds. Where else can you do this? Literally have the city of Louisville in the background. It's a really special place.
While I think we often overhype the phrase hidden gem, I think it's appropriate for Falls of the Ohio. It's full of history and people are still part of its story today. Plus, this place literally has hidden gems. Okay, those gems are actually fossils, but the analogy still works, right? And if you want an ideal staycation, this area of southern Indiana would be perfect. It's like a perfect weekend because you can do so many things, and the park could kind of be a central hub for you spilling out into the rest of the community. But there's a lot to do, and I really loved it.
Yeah, we live in a cool little community, and when you talk about a great weekend spot, it is that. I mean, you can come and enjoy great dining, awesome views, nature. You can, cross the river. We can be in downtown Louisville from the Falls of the Ohio in about 5 minutes and enjoy some urban bourbon trail or whatever you may want to do, right? It's a pretty unique place.
Basically, when it comes to exploring and discovering the fossils, at Falls of the Ohio State Park, hitting rock bottom is actually the goal. And if you have a kid whose head is full of rocks, maybe a rocky start is exactly what they need.
To see a child experience absolute joy at one of these properties, it's the reason I do it. We're here to serve the guests. To see people having a great experience is great, but to see a kid do it is even better.
Falls of the Ohio State Park has an impressive past and a vibrant future full of amazing stories, all built on the foundation of these incredible fossil beds, which you can only see if you spend time in the parks. A massive thank you goes to the Falls of the Ohio staff and volunteers who shared their time and knowledge with me. Thank you, Alan Goldstein and Jake Shapley from the park, and Kenton Wooden with the Falls of the Ohio Foundation. In the Parks is not officially associated with Indiana DNR, but I'm grateful for all the work they do for our parks. Please share this podcast with your friends and give it a positive review on your favorite podcast platform. You can follow along on Instagram and Facebook at In the Parks Online for more state parks content and my recommendations for the best places to get ice cream near each park. It's a beautiful 3/4 mile walk along the Ohio River from Falls of the Ohio to Widow's Walk Ice Cream, so I would definitely recommend going there. Thanks for listening, and I hope to see you in the parks.